The Yakuza series is best known for its boss battles and its side content. Today we will be looking at the best boss battle in each Yakuza game, including the Judgment games, as they're still made by the same creator. However, this list will not include Ishin, as it is too recent, as well as Like a Dragon Gaiden, The Man Who Erased His Name, and Yakuza 8 Infinite Wealth, as they have not come out yet at the time of this recording. So strap in and enjoy yourself. This is Big Nose and Oats! To being your guide for the best Yakuza boss battles. Starting off this list is Kenji Shibusawa from Yakuza 0. The reason I chose this boss is because I feel that this is the epitome of Kiryu becoming the Yakuza legend, the Dragon Dojima, throughout the Yakuza series. Because at this point in the game, Kiryu is determined to do anything he can to save Makoto from Shibusawa. However, what really stands this battle out is how many QTEs there are, especially the last one where you get to punch him in the face a few times, which is really satisfying. And overall, this is a very solid boss fight. For Yakuza 1 or Kiwami 1, I decided to go with Akura Nishiyama, the final boss of the game again, because I feel that this battle is very symbolic of Kiryu and Nishiki's relationship throughout the entire game. Kiryu's just become the fourth chairman of the Tojo clan, which Nishiki was gunning for, even though despite being best friends in Yakuza 1, Yakuza 0 I mean, they have become sworn enemies due to Kiryu being in jail for such a long time, and Nishiki falling into the dark and being influenced by the Japanese underground. This fight also in Kiwami 1 is better because it includes flashback scenes to when they were both friends, as well as certain events throughout the game. Even though there aren't as many epic moments in this fight as with Shibusawa, I feel that this fight is made even more emotional due to the great music, as well as the fact that Nishiki used to be your best friend in Yakuza 0, but now has turned into your sworn enemy, which is ironic because the name of the song is called For Whose Sake, so it shows that Nishiki doesn't know who he's fighting for. He may not even be fighting for anyone, just to be on top of Kiryu for once in his life and control his destiny, as the cutscene prior to this. Overall, I love this fight, and it's a perfect end to the first game in the series. Probably thinking, why did I pick Koji Shindo as the best boss in Yakuza 2, despite being such a throwaway villain who only cared about this Noji and now Shihata despite being twice her age, frankly. However, this boss fight was so much fun due to the fact that he basically has one of the best themes in the entire game, which is basically called Breakall. And throughout this fight, you get to chase him around the Tojo headquarters and even get a sword fight with him, which is a lot of fun. However, the really cool part is that when you beat him, he's actually not down. You have to return back to the room you started the fight in, and he attacks you by sneaking up to him, which you have to press the button, another QTE. But it's just a very fun fight, and it utilizes the location very well for this boss battle. For Yakuza 3, I decided to go with Joji Kazuma. Now, the reason I went with this instead of Yoshitaka Mine is because this is in fact kind of like a fight of Kiryu versus Shintaro Kazuma, since they are both, since Joji was Shintaro's younger brother and also CIA agent. So we actually got to see what a fight between Kiryu and Shintaro would have looked like, and kind of like the student passing them to the teacher. And also another thing is that this fight takes place in a strip club, which is also really funny in and of itself, because the person he's trying to save, Toma, actually went to a strip club for some reason. I forget, you know, because Yakuza 3 is technically my least favorite game in the franchise so far, and I hope that future games do not go as low as Yakuza 3. For Yakuza 4, I decided to go with Junichi Senguchi, the final boss of Tanemura's part in Yakuza 4, because this fight is actually starts with a QTE in which Tanemura and Senguchi are handcuffed to each other, and you have to do a QTE fight to begin with, and it really sets the stage for this fight. Overall, I thought Yakuza 4 did have some better bosses than Yakuza 3, but like this is the one that stood out the most to me because of this opening, and also how Tanemura is technically, in my opinion, the main character of Yakuza 4, because his arc is kind of complete at the end of the game, which is why probably despite that, he never reappeared in another Yakuza game. Yakuza 5's final boss is kind of controversial in the fact that a lot of people thought that he was a weak choice for the final boss due to how little he appeared in the story and how he just kind of was there at the end. And that many people, including myself, believe that the final boss should have been Morinaga, which was a much more better choice throughout the game due to how he was framed as the main bad guy in the beginning of the game, but he was killed off screen, which was kind of a dumb decision in my opinion in Yakuza 5. But anyway, the reason I chose this boss is because this is actually my favorite boss in the entire franchise, despite the controversy with Aizawa being the final boss of the Yakuza 5. And throughout this fight, you're fighting throughout Tojo Clan headquarters, which I mentioned during the Shindo fight, and you're constantly beating him and doing having to do QTEs throughout the entirety of the headquarters. And it actually is very symbolic, as I read in a YouTube comment, that as you fight through the headquarters, you're pushing Aizawa away from his dream to run the Tojo Clan, which I think is very poetic and very cool detail that the developers decided to put in. Overall, I love this fight because of how much action there is, and just how each phase is just done so well. Overall, a very solid boss fight, and definitely one of my favorites in all of gaming. Yakuza 6 was very hard for me to choose a good boss for truly, this is my second favorite Yakuza game, and all the bosses were actually really fun in this game, despite them having not that much health. But I decided to go with Horose because of how significant his story is. It's kind of like another Kazuma to the Yakuza in Hiroshima, and he would be an antagonist in the last half of the game. Basically, he was secretly a hitman for the Yome Alliance, and it clearly shows in his boss fight how this man, who is like 90, is able to keep up with Kiru, who's almost 50, and in great shape. Yakuza, I love the part with the falling knives. That, to me, and the fog, it really goes to show that you can pop his head anywhere and attack, and it really goes to show how he's such a good fighter, similar to how Kazuma was. It's just a really good boss fight. For Judgment, I decided to go with the final boss again, Mitsuru Kuraya. Now, the reason I chose Kuraya is because this fight actually has one of the best, scenes where they actually play. It's not a QTE, but they show them like duking it out, and Yagami almost gets knocked out of the window, but it manages to come back in. It's really entertaining, and it also is a good fight because Yagami is going to go against the ADDC and expose that they have been developing a drug that would cure Alzheimer's, but in fact it was part of the murders used in Kamurocho, and it goes to show you how Yagami is standing up against the quote-unquote greater good, and it's about money, and it doesn't matter how many lives they take in order to get this drug working, while Yagami believes that they should be held accountable under the law. And it also, the music for this fight is also really eerie, and it shows just how much of a monster Kawaya is, the hitman for the ADDC, and even when you defeat him the first time, the fight's not over, as you have a second phase in which you have to fight him again, which I think is really good. I love multi-phase boss fights, and I do think this one really delivers on an epic final boss fight for a spin-off Yakuza game. For Yakuza Like a Dragon, I decided to go with Joe Sawashiro's second fight in Yakuza Like a Dragon because despite the fact that this game switched to turn-based combat, which was very controversial for the Yakuza series because I do feel like you did lose some of those epic fights with the fighting and the QTEs, but I do enjoy the turn-based fights, and I do think it fits Ichiban's character. But the reason I chose this fight is because I love how throughout this fight he switches his weapons, and he uses like a stick and the cane. I just love the transitions between each phase of the fight, and how it shows just how adaptive a fighter Sawashiro is, despite the fact that it's a turn-based game. And it really, and also I do love how this fight, this fight takes place at this point in the game, and at this point, Ichiban's father figure, Mazumi Arakawa, has been murdered by some unknown assailant, and it seems like it might be Sawashiro. So, and then also there's the revelation that Arakawa might actually be Ichiban's father, which we, at this point, we don't know, and it really heightens the stakes for this fight because Sawashiro might be Ichiban's father's murderer, and it really goes to show that how even despite this being a turn-based game, we could have great fights like the previous Yakuza game, despite the change in combat. Go with Kazuki Soma's second fight because I feel like he is truly the main antagonist of Lost Judgment, despite the fact that it's actually Kawano, even though Kawano's definitely the best villain in the series, and he technically was the instigator of everything, but Soma was the one who actually carried out the murder of Sawa, and overall his fights were a lot better than Kawana's, in my opinion. And I do love that we fight him in the freezer for the second phase, and it's just really a good fight because Yagami is angry and he wants to get back to the person who killed an innocent woman, and he won't let the legal system turn a blind eye to it, which is why he actually finds himself in the freezer trying to prove that Soma was actually a part of the murders, and it's just a really well done boss fight. Especially even though it's the second to last fight, not the final boss, which is really good. Thank you for joining me. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps me out, and stay tuned for future videos. This is Big Nose and Oats signing off.